Well, welcome to Anxiety Simplified. And I'm Joanne Williams, and I'm really here to share some powerful strategies with you that I've learned with my clients of 30 years as a licensed mental health professional to lower anxiety simply. That you can bring right into your home, your family, and help in any way that you feel is best for your family with better information or just to make your life a little less stressful. And I really want to thank my loyal listeners for making this possible. So enjoy. I am here on today on this podcast to share kind of a special report of how we need women back in the workforce if we want the US to get back to being number one in the world or the number one economic power. Because I'm going to share some evidence of the difference that women are making in the world as leaders and how you, as a woman, can find your strength to show your value to get back into the workforce because we need you right now, but to expect more. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know why more than half of the 20 something million who left the workforce during COVID are women? And do you know that 1 in 4 women are now considering leaving the workplace or downshifting their careers altogether? Or even that 2 million women are looking at just leaving corporate America. There's really something wrong there. And that's what I hope we're going to look at as part of our, I'm calling it a social fabric issue. And it doesn't take me too long to figure it out. If you're a woman in the workplace, how have you been treated during the COVID pandemic crisis? That's a pandemic of our lifetime. Women are amazing at so many things. Then why aren't they paid what men are, or even given the credit they are due in companies with respect so they wouldn't be leaving or worked with? Now with increased fear of liability, even from Me Too movement, which means abandonment of mentorships of women by men instead of collaboration and support between the two. And this is because that this long time abuse of women has been exposed in corporate America and in lots of different places, and we're not putting up with it anymore. But now men don't seem to have figured out how do I respond? What do I do except to avoid? Or have you thanked a woman lately or appreciated the sacrifices that the women in your life have made, especially during COVID? Not only as the moms or the caregivers of most families, but the medical workers, the cashiers, the front line COVID defenders. They are making your life better. And I want you to think about it. When you get hurt, especially when you're a little kid, who do you call for? Mommy. Who do you run to? Or if you're having a really bad time in a relationship or whatever, who do you call? It's not a corporation or government. We are still in a global economic and health crisis. So even if you don't want to believe it, we are. We need women back to make it better, to make it all better. Because the data I'm going to share with you shows why. And according to a 2020 Women in the Workplace study co-authored by McKinsey and leanin.org, 1 in 4 women are now considering leaving the workplace or downshifting their careers. And as many as 2 million, like I just said, thinking just leaving corporate America. Corporate America, you need to listen up. You need these women. Well, stressors, which have been a massive increase in caregiving responsibility at home and at work, may be jeopardizing women's ability to stay in the workplace and progress. Think about leaving the workplace or your career and you come back in. It is detrimental And according to this survey, additionally, 40% of mothers compared to 27% of fathers have added 3 or more additional hours of caregiving a day to their schedule. That's 15 or more hours a week, the equivalent of a considerable part-time job. Or one of the most stressful jobs ever is caregiving, whether it's children or adults. We need more women back, I think, as our superpower for our own best interest in global policies and to curb this global economic crisis. That if we think, like we've always said, America has a cold or just a sneeze, the world has the flu and knocks them out. We need to be here for the world as well. And this affects everybody, male and female. If we don't get this right, and right now, and support the care economy, they're calling it, that is being proposed by the current administration, I want to share why. This and other legislation is critical and why you should care and expect more from our governments to improve our lives, because corporate America is just too slow to do it. And they're just dragging their feet about paying more. And so let's expect it. And most important of all, of our future is for women to show their value in the workplace, especially as they come back to work, where again, now they are needed. You cannot shy away. Women, you've got to stand up for all that you can do, and you're right to be paid better, and standards that include taking care of your family and working. Again, we're starting to show where our value is. If women are leaving corporate America, there's not a value there. And if they're staying home or starting their own business, that's so they can juggle both. More or less, the younger generations coming up, they're not putting up with this like we have in the past because we kind of had to. No more. And this to me goes much deeper. When I realized I was wrestling with why my podcast, this podcast, Anxiety Simplified, is not getting what I want is 20,000 downloads. I don't expect it. I have been doing this podcast now for about 10 months. And I really started it in the middle of the pandemic to really give back just from my heart. And I really didn't know what to expect, or really didn't expect much. So I haven't received as much because of it. And I am very grateful for every one of my downloads and my loyal listeners. I can't say enough of thank you, but I want more. And I'm going to expect more to keep doing this. So I have found a mentor to help me to get to that place that I want to be with this podcast so I can continue to do it. And I found a successful woman, Raven Glover. She has her own show, her own network, her own agency to promote these kinds of things to be successful. And so I have to reach out and ask for more and then expect it to come to me. But I'm going for it, as we all need to right now. But you've got to ask for what you want so that you can offer what you do best. And as I've done more of my self-reflection on this, I am understanding more, maybe why I haven't expected more. Why should I expect more when it really doesn't matter? I was thinking, I'll never achieve it because I don't truly believe I can achieve it. Can I work more hours, do my practice, do a podcast, present what people are wanting? And, I just kind of felt like I feel defeated. It'll probably never happen. Do you ever feel this way? So many things against you. My children are grown. I don't have little kids running around the house. And there is even more stressors there. So I can feel why women would be leaving the workforce. It's just too much. But I can see it. Why? That is happening. And I also can see from my initial family dynamics of perfectionism with unrealistic expectation on the girls in the family, and also from my career of 30 years working from one agency after another as a psychological mental health expert in the helping profession for the agencies that seemed like they could care less about me personally, what my needs are. It was the bottom line of the number of visits, counseling sessions done, or that outcome they were looking for that I need to create for them. It was not a two-way street. And I can see that any relationship must be a two-way street. You give, right? They give back, and not just a paycheck. It needs to be more satisfying, what I need also, or I leave. But why should they give me more if I don't expect them to? If I just sit back, be nice, shut up, and put a happy smile on my face, look pretty, that's good enough. No, I don't think it is anymore. And women, I really want you to hear this. We need to expect more. It was one agency that I did give everything and was a two-way street with giving respect back and wanting my actual opinions. And it was headed by a woman. I stayed there 5 years, the longest of any agency. And I could finally see the power of a true woman leader or executive. She headed the clinical department of one of the largest medical groups in Palm Springs, California. She was empathetic, listened, accepted me for my strengths, and overlooked my weaknesses, or trained me on those, helped me. She made really tough, rational decisions for the good of the company, and then built programs that benefited the community and her employees and the company's bottom line. And then, as I had seen in every other company, the hard-nosed men kind of got their egos out of joint and it all fell apart, and back to the do as I say or leave the agency. So I ended up leaving again, just like I left ever the agency. And I always had my private practice counseling as my fallback. Thank goodness. But today I see that old way, or, at the old way of my way or the highway is hurting us all. It's not inclusive. And one of my employees I mentored at that agency told me in a meeting, I want to be paid more money. I'm like, good for you. I agree. So I advised her to show me her value so I could be her advocate. She had an expired nursing license and working as an assistant instead of as a licensed nurse. When she was hired at a lower wage. So she wasn't actually getting, what she wanted. But she started to set her standards higher. She got her nursing license back and she asked and got more money, and I could advocate for that. You have to be able to show your value and why you deserve that. And if they, the company, need that and want that, it's to their advantage, their best interest to be able to do that. But one of the things I saw consistently as a supervisor is that if you come in at a lower wage when you get hired, and then get this normal, if it's 3% per year raise, you're starting at where you're brought in at a lower wage. And as women go back into the market right now, you need to leverage this from the beginning of the process. Get that negotiations and your whatever that wage is as high as possible in the beginning, because that's where your raises will start from. It's really harder to negotiate once you're in there. And you need to learn how to negotiate and advocate for yourself and your value. Get a book, listen to a podcast, get a mentor like I am, and practice it before you go to these interviews. But I want you to expect more. I want women to go into this workforce and expect more. I expect more. And I was going to say want 20,000 downloads for no, I am expecting. That is my goal which it's all about helping people. So I need you guys to also help me. If this is of value to you and you want it, it has to be a two-way street. But I could see that my subconscious thermostat is set not to expect. So I have it. But I do need more from my audience to support me to keep doing this. So again, so let's make this a two-way street. But I do want to inspire women today who may be feeling defeated. I want to share today more about how women are making a difference in the world. And let's change our internal thermostat to expect more of the leaders in the workplace by being clear, especially with men, about what your expectations are. So they know exactly where that line is drawn. There's no confusion, there's clarity. So they don't have to be afraid of women because we need men who are 98% of the executives to understand this too. We have to help them to help us get where we need to go and to stay our mentors about negotiations and other ways to do this. But like I said earlier, I do believe we have a social fabric issue in the US as one of the issues here. Our values and where we put our resources show that what we value needs to change. If we don't choose to see racism or white supremacy or one of these issues that support an autocratic government, even if it's our own, no matter where it is, we will continue the erosion of our social fabric that is the underpinning of our great democracy. Families are a value. Of where we put our value, we need to focus there. And that is where all of our focuses need to be. What do we want for our democracy? Do we want white only, generally men, to be in control so they can bring up this white supremacy stuff that white is better? We need to use our voices here. And that's where I see that women need to put their time and energy into stating, about what their needs are so they don't leave corporate America and not returning. And here are two articles that I want to talk about today that shows the value of women. One from Don Morrison. It was on 2/21/21 from Tampa Times. And also from Reuters. Andrea Chahal, an article 6/21/21. What happens when women run the economy? Well, we're about to see. Don Morrison starts off his article talking about a 14th century Italian diplomat who wrote a book, The Prince, and has long been blamed for encouraging the worst in political leaders' ruthlessness or even betrayal or blackmail. He reports that it has been the way that men are expected to lead or govern. That's they considered effective. And this standard has been measured by leaders today who we are willing to overlook their flaws. Winston Churchill's drinking, John Kennedy's womanizing, or Donald Trump's Trumpish, nasty ways, if we like their job performance. The problem with this approach is, however, how do we know what that job performance will be before it's too late? Like a global health crisis that kills millions of people without good leadership of what to do in a crisis instead of just going bankrupt and moving on. Herbert Hoover came into office with a solid record of accomplishment, but the Great Depression found him clueless and ineffective, while Harry Truman arrived with low expectations and left with generally high marks. The problem is how to tell in advance which habits, skill sets, and make good leaders, whether it's in government or in business management. And motivational speakers have long been addressing that question, and now there is new evidence. What truly looks effectiveness in leadership looks like. And hands down, it's become very obvious which of these skills you want in a crisis. Morrison goes on with a suggestion: hire a woman to see that effectiveness. And he goes into some of the most successful leaders in the world right now are women. Germany's Angela Merkel, New Zealand's Jacinta Ardern, Norway's Erna Solberg, Taiwan's leader, the International Monetary Fund's leader, and she was replaced by another woman from Bulgaria. So we have now so many women leaders in financial places in the world. We are going to see some differences. But Merkel from Germany, for instance, has been described as the de facto leader of the European Union. Here they did Brexit. They've done all these things. And she is coming out as one of the most powerful women in the world. Arden from New Zealand. Forceful response to the current pandemic has turned New Zealand into a prosperous, nearly COVID free paradise. While being 7 months pregnant, or with their infant in her arms, even in press conferences. In the business world, several studies are showing that companies run by women, though still a minority, usually outperform those led by men. A 2016 report from investment firm Credit Suisse, for example, this found that firms with a higher proportion of women in the top roles generated better returns for shareholders' equity and had stronger balance sheets. And look what happened with GM. Handed Mary Barra the keys in 2014. And just recently, Jan Fraser recently became Chief Executive Officer of Citicorp after it was fined $400 million for what regulators called unsafe and unsound business practices. So, what exactly do women leaders do better? From a Harvard study, women scored higher than men on traits such as motivating, communicating, and fostering teamwork, the so called, what they used to call soft skills that women had, and were traditionally associated with women. But female bosses did even better on those what they called hard, tough skills that men's attributes were about, or what that book, the Prince, showed. Only men could do this. But it was like the tough, like decision making, initiative taking. The same reason some experts say is that men tend to view their careers as vertical, as straight up, because they can, for one thing. But women, by contrast, take a broader horizontal approach because they have to, building the relationship outside the office, maybe when they're having children, or taking career detours into unrelated fields because they're looking for happiness and less stress. In fact, these side steps they're showing, or side step trips, tend to help women become nimbler, more creative decision makers. And as what I see as part of this is women can use two sides of the brain, the emotional and the logical, easier than men. But as you know now from the Biden administration, 48% of his cabinet are women. The Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who was the head of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and now we have a Commerce Secretary, and the Trade Czar are women. In Joe Biden's administration, many of his economic advisors are also women. The sea change may already be affecting economic policy. The new 2.3 trillion spending that's being introduced by Biden includes 400 billion to fund the care economy, supporting home and community-based jobs, taking care of children and seniors, the work that normally done by women that have mostly gone unacknowledged in years. And I think the real secret here is to getting America back on its feet and the middle class a leg up is this care economy. This plan also has hundreds of billions of dollars to fix racial and urban and rural inequities that are created in part by past economic, trade, and labor policy. Yellen is calling it focusing on human infrastructure. In the end, she says this bill might end 80 years of history. It begins to fix structural problems that have plagued our economy for the last 40 years. adding, this is just the start for us, women leaders, to bring a fresh perspective to the economy. A professor at Harvard Business School said, when you're different from the rest of the group, you often see things differently. Reimagining capitalism in a world on fire. Rebecca Hinson said, we tend to be more open to different solutions, she says. We're in a moment, even one of the most enormous crises, we need new thinking. And that's what she is saying we can offer. Over the past half century, 57 women have been president or prime minister of their countries. But institutions have made economic decisions have largely been controlled by men until recently. We're outside the US, where we've never had a woman president. First vice president is women. But right now at the helm of the European Central Bank, there is a woman. At the International Monetary Fund, which over 1 trillion in lending power, and the World Trade Organization, these are all jobs held by men a decade ago, are not now held by women. And overall, there are women running finance ministries in 16 countries and 14 of the world banks. And according to an annual report prepared by a think tank for central banks and economic policy, the limited measures available suggest that women have a better track record of managing complicated institutions through crisis. When women are involved, the evidence is very clear. Communities are better economies, and the world is better. In January, the IMF and other institutions said women make great leaders because we show empathy and speak up for the most vulnerable people. Empathy, vulnerability, which they're calling weak skills. Well, we've always considered kind of weak. They're saying this is the superpower. And additionally, women are decisive, and women can be more willing to take or find a compromise. A study by the American Psychological Association showed that U.S. states with female governors had fewer COVID deaths than those led by men. And a new Harvard Review study reported that women got significantly better ratings in a 360-degree assessment of 60,000 leaders. Last March through June of 2020, women only account for 2% of the CEOs of financial institutions and less than 20% of executive boards. But the institutions they did run show greater financial resiliency and stability. Are you hearing this? I've never heard about this, but this is how the impact that a few women that more women are making on finance and on the world stage, and how we need more women in the workplace right now. And some of the policies that are being talked about in the Biden administration is supporting that with human infrastructure, creating daycare, pre-K to build a workforce that is more inclusive where more women can be a part of it and may actually be that secret weapon. My opinion of women as being more effective is because they are like the great geniuses of the world, like Da Vinci or Michelangelo, who are able to use both hemispheres of their brain, the creative, emotional, or the logical and spatial right brain. Women have been shown to be able to multitask or have information transferred between the right and left hemispheres fluidly that men cannot. I think having to figure out how to construct a playpen and show love and nurturing to our children and keep them alive is now being shown in our business world as an advantage because we can more easily access the emotional, empathetic conversations with people and the decision-making decisiveness that is needed at both home and in finance. The respect has been very slow to come, where 98% of financial institutions are run by men. However, it does take a crisis to bring the cream of the crop to the top. So that's what we need from you women right now. Expect more, show your value, feel it, reset your thermostat to show your personal worth and strength, to be able to speak up to government or corporations. If they want you back, expect more. People of color are expecting more, and we need to figure out what we are either working together for everyone's sake or we are hurting everyone equally with white supremacy. It's hurting us all. Even if it doesn't appear that way to some, we can do this. So I hope you can take this information to heart and can see its importance of supporting women in your life, seeing that they have value in everything that they are doing for your family, and appreciate it. And we see them for what they are doing to get your family and us through this pandemic. And let's see what they can do beyond. Support your woman today by just saying thank you. And this is by no means a replacement for therapy or any medical attention. If you need it, always reach out and take care of yourself, or check me out at Facebook. If you are, want to share any information, or you can see the video of this podcast at anxietysimplified.net. Or if you would like to hear more or see how maybe an emotional support or psychiatric service dog could help you go in more places to help you feel more secure, you can find more information at esapros.com. So thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. And we would expect you to show your support by rating, reviewing, and subscribing, please. And sharing this with somebody you think this could help in some small way to help lift them up. But remember to practice the skills we talked about today. Expect more. Find your value. Speak up. And we always look forward to hearing from you. All for now.